On social media, I've learned, and I think I've addressed every false talking point that you guys have seen in these spaces about black men. And this is one of the most important ones that I see a lot of people still running with, even after I did my first video about this. But I got into a conversation, and this woman at the bottom, she said, add that women can't deny they have children and men can. And this is in response to the narrative, and I quote, the reason why black men have fathered less children than black women have mothered is because their names are left off birth certificates. You guys have heard this before, right? Because every time we bring up the statistic of only 46% of black men have ever fathered children, 54% of black men have never had children, the common rebuttal is this right here. Was because of the fact that black men aren't there to put their names on the birth certificates, so that's why they have on paper less children than black women. Yes, I know it sounds crazy, and if you are new to my channel, you probably don't even understand why I'm addressing this, but this is a common narrative about black men in these spaces. And it's my job to give you guys the real-time information to explain it from a present-day approach to a future, what the future will look like, and also we're going to go back to the history of how this came to be and why this birth control argument is foolery. So let's answer the birth certificate insult that's only directed towards black men once again, because the first time I discussed this, I was in Brazil and the sound was bad. If you guys remember that video, it's still on my page. So first, let's start here. Can a mother refuse to put a father on the birth certificate? Yes, a mother can refuse to put the father on a father's name on the birth certificate if the mother and father are not married at the time of the child's birth. An increasingly common occurrence, with up to about 40% of all births being to unmarried women, according to the CDC. Roughly 40% of babies in the US are born to mothers who are not married. However, in the black community, that percentage hovers around 68 to 70% over the last 7 years. These babies don't have married parents. They may still have involved fathers who are present for the child's birth and still heavily involved in raising them. Another reason their name will be excluded is if the mother refuses to put the father's name on the birth certificate. So the takeaway is this: at the time of birth, if a mother doesn't know who the father of the child actually is, that speaks more to a woman's sexual history than the correct man, quote unquote, correct man being placed on the birth certificate. Okay? So the reason why the overwhelming majority of married couples don't have the birth certificate issues is because it's already assumed that the husband's name will be placed on the birth certificate. And even this isn't 100% due to a 2022 study published in Human Reproduction explored data from, I think it was 1,211 men seeking paternity test services in the United States. Findings revealed that 11% were not the biological father. Although it's only 11%, it should be none, because women would never get pregnant by another man and then say it's her boyfriend's or her husband's child, right? Yeah, okay. Let's talk about this study. In 2006, Wiley Online Library published a study conducted by the Department of Population and Family Health Services, Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, titled "A National Sample of U.S. Paternity Tests. Do Demographics Predict Test Outcomes?" Nearly 300,000 paternity tests are performed in the United States annually to include or exclude a male as a biological father of a child. Their objective was to document the demographic disposition of test subjects and determine how well ethnic background and age predicted paternity inclusion. A national database of 9,999 paternity tests was weighted to represent the population of paternity establishment cases in the United States. What do you think the results were? It should be 100, right? If they tested 9,999 men to see if their kid was theirs, it should be 100 because all women are righteous and they don't cheat. The test results indicated paternity inclusions in 72% of the cases overall. Now, I know you guys are probably asking, what is the definition of inclusions? A paternity inclusion is a DNA test result that states that the tested male is most likely the biological father of the child. This is because the genetic markers of the alleged father and the child match perfectly. In other words, a paternity inclusion means that the man is the father of the child. So, if 72% of the DNA tests were correct, then that means that 28% were not the father. But the percentage varied little across racial and or ethnic categories, with a low of 67% in African Americans and a high of 82% among Native Americans. But these differences were not significant in the multivariate analysis. So, explanation. Among African American men that were DNA tested, out of that 9,999, 33% or 1/3 came back not the father. 33%. Even though this study was published in 2006, 18 years ago, do you think the 33% of not the father results increased or decreased? Think about the times that we're in the hookup culture. What y'all think? Lastly, do you think if 100% of black men were DNA tested at the child's birth, would this increase, raise the 46% of black men who have ever fathered children, or decrease the percentage? Lowered. What do y'all think? And again, when black women say that black men are left off the birth certificate, ask yourselves, why would you leave a man off the birth certificate in the first place? A couple of reasons could be that you had the children at a wedlock, which is how the majority of black children are born, or you had sex with multiple men and you don't know who the father is, or you got pregnant by someone you didn't want to, and you don't want him to be on the birth certificate. Whatever the reason is, it speaks more towards the woman's sexual patterns than it does to a percentage of black men who aren't counted in the 46% of us who have fathered children. Do y'all understand now? The 2022 study was published in Human Reproduction. Like I said, we discussed that earlier. And then also, the study unveiled variations in non-paternity rates across demographics, with higher prevalence among men in their 20s and 30s, those unmarried to mothers, and those with shorter relationships. So listen to what I just said there. The higher prevalence of men, black men, you could say, not being the father, was in between their 20s and 30s, and also those who are unmarried to their mothers. Sounds like the black community in a sense, right? Another significant study in 2023 focused on men mandated by the courts to undergo paternity testing. Remember, this is in 2023. They were mandated by the courts. The study found a substantial 12% were not the biological fathers, emphasizing social factors like lower socioeconomic status and non-Caucasian ethnicity influencing non-paternity. Non-Caucasian, okay? Anything other than white. Black people is in there. And then also, that was ironically from the website fraud.com. And also to answer the final question, there is no federal or state law in the United States that requires DNA testing to be established at paternity at birth. So again, if every man was given a mandatory DNA test at the time of birth, the percentage of fathers would actually be lower due to the percentages of paternity fraud. So again, Using the all fathers aren't listed on the birth certificate argument actually works against Black women because it points directly to your lack of sexual discipline. Okay? I don't know where their logic comes from when we have this conversation. And also, if you want a clear snapshot, I advise you guys to go on blackdemographics.com, look at the fertility report. You guys can look all this stuff up as well. And like I said, I'm going to put the links in the description because I don't want you guys to believe me, especially the women who hate Black men. I want you guys to read this stuff because I want the Black community to learn so we can move on from this foolery. Okay? This is called level setting the conversation. This is not attacking, even though Black men get attacked with this false ass narrative every damn day. It's something new. I just showed you guys the economic status of the Black community, and these fools still going off with this foolery. It's crazy, man.